You know, the world could end tomorrow, and there would still be a new isekai for fans to binge on one night. This time, though, we'll be taking a look at isekai anime, old and new, for some of the most awesome moments out there. In fact, here's our list of the top 20 badass entrances, Isekai edition. Number 20, Subaru crashes Amelia's wedding, Re:Zero. Now, as much as Subaru is just a normal person who learns after he dies 100 times in one battle, he does have his share of amazing moments. And it just so happens that the one we're going to talk about is when he saved his special someone. For the Rem fans out there, it's Amelia. Well, it wasn't a wedding because Amelia was straight up kidnapped, and this white-haired dude was delulu as hell. Subaru and Reinhardt kicked the door so hard that instead of just making an epic entrance, they also hit the guy with it. That's the cherry on top, because they looked like an older brother who his younger brother's sibling called after he was getting bullied at school. And to be honest, I think everyone agrees that Reinhardt is the wingman of the year for anime. It may have been awkward at first, especially with that "I'm the spirit knight whose spirit partner is missing" line, but with that confidence, he gave it some finesse. Number 19, Sensei's entry to save the elf, uncle from another world. We see a trend in isekai heroes just being transported to a new world. It's actually pretty common now. So when we hear about a time when the hero returns to the real world and has to deal with all the years he's been missing, well, you certainly have my attention. In this case, we'll be looking at Oji-san from Uncle from Another World and his rescue of Elf. That is quite literally her name. Yeah. Really. It begins like way too many of these scenes go, where there's a scaly clad woman and some vicious monster about to finally have his meal, before being interrupted by a very rude adventurer who doesn't understand the importance of civility at a dinner table. Either way, he ends it with one strike, but the scene also highlights his strategy by pointing out that he just hit an area that is already damaged. Elf looks in fear at what the admittedly creepy looking guy is gonna do. He hands her his jacket as a way to preserve her dignity, showing us that he's a decent guy overall. What a Chad. Number 18, Kazuma's entrance in Season 3 versus Mitsurugi, Konosuba. Next up is the pinnacle of comedy in isekai, Konosuba. As our favorite group of misfits and idiots continue to get involved in one mess after another, there's no wonder the series has had some remarkable and honestly pretty stupid scenes. One of them is Kazuma's dramatic arrival against Mitsurugi. After being caught with their proverbial pants down, the two were destined for an epic clash, with the blonde knight supposedly having the advantage. That's when Kazuma froze the guy and essentially drowned, and of course made sure to JoJo pose at the end. It is a pretty lighthearted entry, but an excellent one in a lot of ways. For one, it shows that Kazuma does get to use the brain cell he shares with his group, as he manages to trick Mitsurugi with his steel ruse. Plus, it's genuinely funny how into the master thief role he's taken for himself. That little moment where they make their escape only to be blocked by the knight waiting for them. You think that's fight time, but this anime lives to subvert expectations, and they don't disappoint ever. Overall, it was just a great time. Number 17, Makoto enters to show off his new powers, Season 2. Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy. Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy is a typical story about a young man who managed to get on the personal grudge list with God. Deemed a failure, Makoto found a way to make life for himself after Truck-kun dropped him off in a generic fantasy land. This time we'll be looking at Makoto's latest and greatest magical butt pull. Surrounded by friends, old and new, Makoto reveals to them his true man level as he shows the results of all of his experimentation. Then we get the reveal of his new power. Gloop. Well, it did destroy that rock, but yeah, his new power is creating a hyper-dense mana goop around him and showing off to the crowd just what a powerhouse he is. What makes this one great is that it's a sign of how wrong the world is regarding Makoto's talent and worth, and seeing all these people supporting him just shows the community he's built. Combine that with some cool animation, a unique power, and some exciting music, and anyone who sees that scene would get hooked instantly. Number 16. Shin shows his power. Wise man grandchild.
はい、相当抑えて撃ちましたけど。
What do you get when the shonen hero of the previous era trains the shonen hero of the next era? Well, you get All Might and Deku, but in this case, you get Shin. That's what. An awkward kid with no social education and the ability to wipe out armies. The world has gotten some peace and quiet after our boy is desperate for any social interaction that isn't his father. After finding a way to yet another magical academy, Shin here displays some awesome power to the frankly mid-ass students, but that's not the scene we're going to be looking at. The scene in question is when red-haired waifu bait is surrounded by a gaggle of generic thugs with intentions I really wouldn't trust. Shin, of course, says a one-liner that I think is frankly not as impressive as it might have sounded in his head, but the man just started to learn that people exist, so hey, we'll cut him some slack. The animation on the fight is pretty great, using a swishing motion and a movement to give a 360-degree field, which makes the battle feel more open. It's badass because Shin is completely casual during the beatdown, not really even hurting them, which shows that he didn't need to. The speed of the fight made Shin's reaction all the more impressive, because I barely caught what was going on. Number 15. Toka versus Humanity's Strongest. Failure Frame.
強いに近づく遠距離から殺せ何としても何を殺せ
バカ食いしていくことだつまり魔物強化剤によって得られたこの力は
Now we get to see the fun and hype of what happens when the hero starts playing dirty in Failure Frame. Toka's your typical isekai protagonist, bound to another world, has a skill, and people diss it. Turns out to be OP, you know, the usual in isekai anime. In his confrontation with humanity's strongest, that being Garland, Toka plays as waiting to fight another time, and as soon as their backs are turned, he goes and annihilates each of them, showing them all what kind of fighter he is and how dangerous his skill is. This scene lets us know that Toka is a strategic fighter. He'll take any advantage he can if it helps him win, even if it means lying and backstabbing. The animation is pretty great, especially for the poison attacks and tendrils. That look of horror on their faces gives you an idea of the pain they're in, and Toka's smug expression lets us know that there are more tricks up his sleeve as he opens up with his little appetizer. Number 14. Yuyus Arrival. I got a cheat skill in another world.
We're done yet!
Some people say that power fantasies are getting to be a bit much. I say there aren't enough. Luckily, we have this little ditty to look forward to as a punching bag to the world. Yuya has managed to get himself some broken abilities thanks to your average interdimensional portal, and now he has to deal with sumo dudes and biker gangs. This entry has Yuya rushing to save waifu bait. Kaori's kidnapped by some no-gooders, and Yuya sidesteps each and every one of them to reach her, even managing to beat the motorcycle guy without even touching it. This scene works for a lot of reasons. First of all, the animation is genuinely great. It's smooth, and there are those extra frames to give those motions some more weight as he zips around the battle. Speaking of, this fight also gives us a look into Yuya as a character, highlighting his gentle nature as he manages to stop his opponents without trying to hurt them, either by taking their weapons or dodging past them. It serves exactly as an entrance into Yuya's mind. Number 13. Rudius saves Roxy. Mushoku Tensei. Who would have thought that an anime about an incel shut-in isekaiing to another world would be a story about love, healing, and acceptance? I mean, there are also dragons, but still. This time, old Rudy senses trouble in the distance, and we see Roxy doing a pretty good job against an army of monsters, but she's getting overwhelmed. With every monster she kills, another pops up. Just as she feels the end coming, she closes her eyes and we see every monster frozen and Rudy striding toward her like a gentle badass. This scene has some cool magic flying everywhere for the entertainment factor and gives us a pretty good idea that Roxy is actually pretty skilled. It shows us the unique dangers found in this world and gives us a clear example of Rudius's growth as a person and as a magic user as he manages to freeze the situation with ease and immediately bring comfort to the victim with his mere presence. Number 12. Kane's Entrance Exam. The aristocrat's otherworldly adventure, serving gods who go too far.
何これちょっとファイヤーバレット
Well, some gods you can cast into fire, but some will literally give you every power under the sun, and Kane's lucky enough to have the latter. After some reincarnation shenanigans, he finds himself as the son of a noble in a magical world. The first thing he really wants to do, well, that's go to school. In his entrance exam, Kane creates his badass entrance by truly showing everyone they're not dealing with the average 12-year-old. I mean, it wouldn't be an Isekai show if they were. This scene lets us know just how capable he is. When it comes to intelligence, the guy finishes his exams in 30 minutes, his magic power is off the charts, and his swordsman skills are no joke. Basically, this is just a way for both the viewer and the world to get familiar with the kinds of feats we can now expect from this particular protagonist. What makes this different is the lighter tone of the whole thing, which just makes this anime more fun to watch and gives it a casual schoolyard vibe that's pretty wholesome. Number 11. Anos' Entrance Test, Misfit of Demon King Academy.
もう大概にしろ。
そうか、このハンマの鎧を突破できないから言い訳を。どうやら貴様の魔法は戦いには。
I feel like isekai shows are just obsessed with showing off in tests. Is it that complex for the authors? Either way, Misfit of the Demon King Academy is about the ultimate demon ruling over everything before disappearing for a bit to go get some cigarettes. He shows up again in the way of Truck-kun, but finds that the world he left behind turned to dog doo-doo because everyone's magic is lousy and racism is at an all-time high, while the overlords look for their messiah. The same messiah that is pretty pissed at how things turned out. That being Anos. This particular scene takes place during Anos' entrance test to the titular Demon Academy, where he faces a dude who just screams jobber. The guy spends most of the fight talking about how cool he is, which is honestly the least cool thing any person or character could do. Anos warns him to give up, and the badassness of the scene appears when Anos shows everyone just what kind of demon he is, when his opponent just straight up dies from his heartbeat. Yeah, that's right. Anos was quieting his heartbeat and let the jobber hear it at full volume, which was enough to let all of his blood pop out. It's already pretty obvious why that's cool, but the horrified and odd expressions of the people around him make it all the clearer that this moment left an impact. While we're talking about impact, you guys could positively impact this channel by dropping a like on the video and maybe subbing to the channel. So thank you in advance. Number 10. Kito Awakens, Sword Art Online, Alicization.
おかえりキリト君
ただいま。明日だ。
Now we'll be taking a look at the anime that started it all. Kirito is down. The big bad is maniacally laughing as the party looks in horror at their demise. Of course, dying in an isekai is for noobs, so when the big bad tries to finish them off, he instead has to deal with his army falling to the wayside, and a very much alive Kirito power walking his way to an epic showdown. Now, this is what a badass entrance is. They give you some suspense and thinking the squad's taken out before making a build-up with the shield and the frozen army, as you both know and anticipate Kirito's return. His casual show of force as he slowly marches forwards lets you know that he's confident in his victory. Number 9. Sojuro's Entrance versus Shulk, Ishura. If you ever wanted Game of Thrones, but, well, anime, this one's for you. Also, maybe Vinland Saga. It had magic fights, politics, national division, way too many characters to remember, and a sword guy. Speaking of, this time we'll be taking a look at Sojiro's dramatic showdown against a skeleton, but it plays out a lot cooler than it sounds, trust me. First off, the animation is stellar. The movements are sharp, the sound works so well that you can really feel the impact of these clashes, and the choreography feels great. Hell, even the skeleton CGI actually looks interesting instead of giving us nightmare fuel. Arifureta, we're looking at you. It also helps us see that Sojiro is more than just an old guy, since he uses quite a bit of strategy in the battle, analyzing his enemy's movement and predicting Shulk's attacks when he can't beat him in speed. It's an excellent entrance to Sojiro's character and the kind of fights we'll be seeing. Number 8. Satan fully awakens, the devil is a part-timer.
ソフトクリームマシンのメンテを教える約束だしな。さてお前ら、よくも世界を支配するこの俺に地味な役割を押し付けてくれたな。どうしてくれようか。
The Devil's a Part-Timer felt like the peak of anime once upon a time, and scenes like these are why. After a little class in another world, Satan pops into regular Earth and immediately gets himself a job at Anime McDonald's. Things happen, and now Lucifer appears to kill the guy, and it looks like he succeeded. Things are looking dire, and Lucifer makes a monologue about something or the other, but the guy did the one thing Satan couldn't tolerate: interfere in his perfect attendance. The scene is so good for a lot of reasons, one of them being showing Satan in his ultimate form, the wrathful being that had the world trembling once upon a time. The dramatic show of Satan's punch with stacks and stacks of magical circles piling lets us know that this battle is already over, and the inevitable destruction would be a sight to behold. It is an entrance of just how powerful our mild-mannered fast food worker is, and reminds us that he's not someone you want to mess with. Number 7. Hajime's vengeful entrance, Arifureta. Now we come to one of the edgiest looking anime out there, and also one of the edgiest entrances out there. It's usually hard to describe what Arifureta actually is, but I find the best description is an isekai anime written by a chuny 13-year-old, but, you know, actually good. In this scenario, everyone in Hajime's life has been pretty lousy, and now he wants vengeance for something or the other. It's all very emo and edgy. With him are the most waifuiest of waifus that are there to add some personality to his one-noteness. It's also because of one of these waifus that we have this badass entrance. A bunch of robed jerks were doing a little backstabbing and, well, front stabbing against Hajime's harem, which is when the guy pops up and proceeds to annihilate the standing army there with a goddamn minigun. This is pure anime violence in its best form. Sure, these things usually have a story and a plot to make things interesting, but the sheer animated madness happening on the screen would make any of our inner 13-year-olds scream in joy at what was unfolding. It serves as a reminder of just how powerful Hajime is and just what kind of danger testing his wrath can lead to. Number 6. Shadow's dramatic entrances, the Eminence in Shadow.
見事だ。美しき剣を振るう者よ。
There's a lot of anime that really go overboard on edginess, and there are some that mock those kind of guys by calling them chuny. Well, this is an anime about a guy who gets really into his edgy roleplay, only to find out it's all real. Eminence in Shadow is definitely one of the more bonkers isekai out there, but the animation and fights are at their peak. A case in point is the dramatic entrance of Shadow himself. The scene is great because it simultaneously is dramatic, cheesy, and funny. The animation is, honest to God, some of the best out there, like Fate level good. Plus, every action he takes really fits into the persona he's making. The fall from the skylight, the flowery words on arrival, and the flowing cape, it's like the guy in the anime is recreating a scene from a different anime, but you know, with a budget that they just can't explain. You'd think I'm mocking the show, but honestly, all of it works. From an objective standpoint, it's really cool, and deep diving into the reasoning just makes the scene even more entertaining to watch. Seriously, if you haven't seen this show yet, its sound design and its visuals are top notch. Go, watch it now. And number 5, Lou Saving Tart, the world's finest assassin. This anime is essentially about dying because of your old job and reincarnating to one with better benefits. Lou's had it rough in his old life as an assassin, but his new one has him learning things that are a lot kinder than what he's used to, so it makes sense that he's got a habit now of saving stars like Tart. An old story of a girl lost in the woods and wolves coming down for their meal. Of course, those poor creatures aren't left to starve for long as Lou pops up and methodically wipes them out in a way where I actually feel bad for the wolves. This entrance shows us the methodical nature of Lou's actions as he picks the optimum spot to end his opponent without much hassle. The description of where he strikes is gruesome and gives us a feel of how robotic he can be in a fight. Number 4, Shield Hero's Heroic Entrance, Rising of the Shield Hero.
Shield Presence!
Up next is the anime that spawned the most hated woman in all of the fandoms, though her feats of evil are pretty mid, to be honest. Rising of the Shield Hero. Season 4 is on the horizon, but in the meantime, let's look at the scenes in the anime that remind us why he's the hero. As the whole village is burning, once again we get to see an isekai world with slavery, because at this point, I think the authors just kind of have a thing for it. But here comes the Shield Hero and his harem of women to save the day. This scene really captures the protective nature of the hero and why his power is so fitting. The first act he does is protect the villagers, making it safe for them to go all out, but instead of ending them himself, he relies on his team to finish the job so he can maintain the villagers' safety. But it also shows the level of trust he has on their skills. Mix that in with some rocking music and the usual fantastic designs, and we have an excellent entrance to the character. Number 3, Ainz's badass entrance, Overlord. A lot of firsts of isekai on this list, as we'll now be talking about the first skeleton dude to be a main character. And yeah, I know it's a bit of a weird list to make, but hey, it's not my fault, it's a thing. Overlord has had some brutal moments, and most are by Ainz, like when he killed 100,000 men as an experiment just to test his strength, but this actually takes the cake. This scene doesn't have Ainz speaking, instead it cuts to the lizard men commenting like they're facing the main bad guy of the story. And with the narrative, it really fits. Ainz goes all out on the presentation because this entrance is on purpose. He wants to present himself as being beyond approach, and he does that by freezing the ground and using his skeleton army to create a staircase for his use. This is just an extravagant show, but it took power and strength that no one could imagine. The music and scenery are used to give one specific idea. This man is a villain of unquestionable power, and there's no way to deny it. Number 2, Tanya on the battlefield, the saga of Tanya the Evil.
Soin!
There's a lot of anime about God mocking or dismissing the main character, but there are few gods that can claim to have personal beef with them, and that's one of the things that makes Saga of Tanya the Evil so great. This scene starts off, as many Germanic-based fantasy settings do, with war crimes. The scene's so powerful because it really captures Tanya's character. They give a detailed and informed report on the laws they must follow, marking them as a bit of a stickler, but we also see just how ruthlessly cunning Tanya can be, and they take advantage of their childish voice to give the war declaration and have them play it off as a joke. This also leads to another point of Tanya's character. They hate being trapped in this body, hate being in this war, and they especially hate having to pray to the god that did all of this for a power boost. But Tanya still goes through it, showing us that they'll take advantage of anything they can to accomplish their goal. Finally, number 1, Rimuru's entrance against Army of 5,000, reincarnated as a slime. And finally, we come to the last entry on our list, and it's only natural that it's one of the most chilling scenes in Reincarnated as a slime. This show really gave us a vibe of a lighthearted, goofy environment, but very soon showed us the deeper, darker aspects of the series, and few can really match an entrance like Rimuru casually cutting down 500 soldiers. This scene has a lot going for it. We've talked about it before, from the beautiful and tragic song in the background, the gorgeous animation of magical effects, to the new design of Rimuru's darker transformation. The killing is so powerful because it just goes quick and easily. The dome lets us feel like they're fish in a barrel, and the instantaneous bullets that land on the soldiers without them realizing really shows how helpless they are. The cold robotic voice counting down how many humans remain brings a finality to the scene that not a lot of other anime can really capture. It is an amazing entrance to the new Demon Lord Rimuru and his intentions, and it's the reason why it's #1 on this list. And there you have it. Our list of One Isekai main characters made some badass entrances. As usual, subscribe, like the video, and even comment on what video I should do next. It helps us out a lot so I can make better videos for you guys. See you on the next one.